Okay, 7th graders, today we're going to be making apple crepes, and for that we're going to need several ingredients. The first ingredients are for the crepe itself. If you'll look down here, you'll notice that I've got some eggs. Remember, a safety tip for eggs is to check them to make sure they don't have any cracks. You want to look at the expiration date to make sure that they're still fresh. We'll also need to have some milk. You're going to pour that into your liquid measuring cup. Please use good measuring technique. Have the measuring cup on the flat surface and check to make sure you have a half a cup. You'll see on your recipe that I've got a circle around some ingredients, one being the milk and the vanilla and the melted butter. You can put all of those ingredients into your liquid measuring cups. So to the half cup milk, you're going to add a half a teaspoon of vanilla. You can pour over the custard cup. You're going to need 2 tablespoons of melted butter. You can pour over the custard cup and add that to your milk. Then on your recipe you also have a circle around flour and salt. You can measure your flour into the small bowl and then add a half a teaspoon of salt to the flour. At the very end of the table here I have just a container of some butter and a little piece of paper towel. If you take one of those, it will help you to grease the pan when you make the crepes. Okay, you're also going to need some ingredients for the apple portion of the recipe. I've got here some Harrison apples. They're straight from the grocery store. When you get your apples, please remember to look them over. Sometimes they have those stickers on. You need to peel the sticker off and give the apples a wash to remove any pesticides or dirt. You're also going to need some brown sugar. I've got a tablespoon measuring spoon in here. Please pack the brown sugar. You need 2 tablespoons of that. And on your recipe, there's a circle around brown sugar and cinnamon. So to that brown sugar, you can add your half a teaspoon of cinnamon. Then I've also got a 2 tablespoon chunk of butter here for you. Once you've got all your ingredients pulled together, you're going to go through the recipe, follow it closely. For the crepes, the first direction tells you to mix the flour and salt in a mixing bowl and make a well in the middle. What that means is you'll have your flour in, take a spoon and make kind of just a hole in the bottom of the flour. That well is going to be a spot for you to put your wet ingredients. To that you're going to add your milk, your vanilla, your butter, and your eggs. Then I'm going to ask you to take a beater. This is a rotary beater. You don't have to plug it into the wall. It's nice if you're camping or working outside. It's just powered by hand. The nice thing about this is it's got little feet on the bottom, so you can set it right in the bottom of the bowl and still turn it to mix. You want to make sure it's straight up and down, not sideways. If you go sideways, your batter's going to splatter all over the room. So once your wet ingredients are in the well of the flour, you're going to put the beater right inside and start mixing. Slowly you'll start mixing that flour in, get the eggs beaten up, get the milk mixed in, and then you're going to move the beater around the bowl and mix in the rest of the flour. When you've got that all mixed together, you're going to add your water and beat it until it's smooth. Once that's done, you're ready to make your crepes. What you're going to do is, in a large frying pan like this, take your paper towel with a little bit of butter and coat the bottom. They are Teflon, but it just seems to make the crepes work a little bit better. So you'll coat that with a little bit of grease. Then you're going to pour in, I think I told you a third of a cup of the batter, and you're going to roll it around so it covers the bottom of the pan. You'll get something that looks like this. Then the directions tell you on your medium-high heat to take a turner and check, I'm going to use this spoon, and check for doneness in the bottom of the crepe. If you pick up the crepe and it's golden brown, you're ready to flip it. So in your pan you should be able to move that around a little bit. If it sticks in some places, it's probably not done yet. When you're all finished, you can, I'm sorry I don't have the turner, but you can take the turner and just flip that crepe over. Or if you're feeling a little adventurous, I'm going to show you how to flip the crepe without a turner. All you do is push the pan away from you and pull it back. So it's going to look like this. You can flip it over. And then cook it so that the other side gets golden brown as well. When you're all done, you can transfer that to a plate and wait for the rest of the crepes to be done. While some people are making the crepes, other people will be making the apples. The recipe for the apples tells you to peel the apples with a vegetable peeler or paring knife. So I've got my apple here, the sticker's off, it's been cleaned. I've got a paring knife. Now, I've been paring apples for a long time, so I'm very comfortable just using the paring knife to take the skin off. What that means is I'm going to go and just start going around, taking the skin off the apple. Okay. For safety, I'm keeping my fingers away from that skin. I'm using my knife as kind of an anchor here, and then I'm just taking off the top layer of the skin. I feel pretty comfortable with that. If you don't feel comfortable using the paring knife, you can also always use a vegetable peeler to take off that extra skin. But I'm going to finish up with this, taking off all this peel. If you want to, if you've washed the apple, when you're all done, if you'd like to eat that in your group, put it on a plate and you can eat it while your group sits down. Don't eat it while you're cooking. Okay, I've got all the skin off my apple. Now the recipe tells me to remove the core and slice into thin, even pieces. So inside the apple is the core. How am I going to get to it? I'm going to take my paring knife and go right down the center of the apple. You can see my fingers are away from where the knife is, and I'm cutting down into the cutting board. I'm going to do that on both sides so that I can get the apple open. You'll notice that on the apple I've got the center, and I've got the stem end, and I've got the blossom end. I've got to get rid of all of those. So I'll show you a nifty little trick. I don't want to see anyone taking a knife and putting it into their hand as they cut out the core. So what I'm going to ask you to do is take a different tool. This is a melon baller. You can make little balls out of watermelon or cantaloupe, but we're going to use it today to remove the core. So all I do is press it over the core, and then with your finger press down in there and turn it around so that it takes out all of those seeds from the middle of the apple. Once you've got that done, you can remove the stem end and the blossom end. Again, don't do it in your hand, do it on the cutting board. You're just going to make a V at both ends to remove that for both the stem and the blossom end, so that when you're done, what you really have left is just the flesh of the apple. That's what we want. This is a dessert item, so we don't have all that lovely fiber that's in the outside of the skin of the apple, but it is dessert, so we're making a little exception there. To get these cut into nice, thin, even pieces, I'm going to use good safety tips, curl my finger, and just start slicing the apple into thin, even pieces. If you get some big and some small, they won't be done at the same time, so you want to try to keep them out the same. When you get to the very end of the apple here, if you feel uncomfortable that that's not stable, you can always just push it to the side and slice that into smaller pieces. Now these are pretty big apples, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make one cut down the middle as well to get them into a little bit smaller pieces. But they're all about the same size. They should cook about the same rate. Now I need to saute these in a pan. So what I'm going to do is take the smaller of the two pans that you have, put my solid piece of butter in, but this time I'm going to have it just on medium heat. Remember, butter burns. If you're in charge of the butter, I want you to be in front of the butter at all times. If you turn away, talk to someone, it could burn. So just put the chunk of butter in, stir it around till it melts. Then it says to add your apples to the pan. So you're going to put in all of your sliced apples, and you're going to saute those, cooking them quickly in hot fat is saute, until they're crispy, or I'm sorry, until they're tender. How do you know if they're tender? You can take a fork or a knife and put it into the apple. I don't know if you can hear, but I can hear that crunchy, so I know that has to be cooked. Cook until you can't hear that crunchy sound anymore, until your apples are just about tender. Then it says to combine the brown sugar and cinnamon, sprinkle them over your apples, stir. It all forms a nice kind of cinnamony brown sugar sauce around the apples. When those are done, turn off the heat and let the apples just sit on the warm burner to stay warm while the crepes are being finished. When you've got all of your crepes on a plate, you're going to take the apples, take a quarter of the apple mixture. I've got a sample of a crepe here. I'm going to put a quarter of that mixture right down the center of the crepe. And then I'll show you how to fold the crepe. Just start at one side, roll it, and then roll it again until you cover up the seam. And when you call me over to check your crepe, I'll ask you if you'd like a garnish of powdered sugar. If you do, I'll sprinkle a little powdered sugar on the top for you. Then just eat and enjoy.